2000 Board of Shoreline Fire Department RFA together. Do I need to be pictures? Maybe yes. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
And
I know, I'm sorry to turn around you two again. Commissioner Webster's got an excused absence tonight. It looks like everybody else is here, either virtual or in person. Do we have any public comment tonight? Okay, none. We have approval of the past minutes for June 25th, 2026, our special meeting. Is there any concerns or amendments to the?
I have one correction.
What's that?
I was in person.
Does it say you were virtual?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, the chair declares the minutes approved as amended. Going on to correspondence. Oh, wait a minute, and then, yeah, correspondence, sorry. Caught up here.
You have there's a nice note in there. Thank you for the personnel at Station 51.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Then we will move on to training, travel reimbursement procedures. I'm going to turn this one over to Beatrice.
This is just kind of for clarification and just to ensure that the processes and stuff continue for travel and training and reimbursement requests and stuff like that. I understand some of the North Shore who haven't been on a much travel and training may not be fully aware of that process, but just a reminder that when you are attending an event or you have well, first off, everyone is issued a department credit card. And that's the credit card that you use, to reserve hotels, to pay, for your meals, to pay, or unless it's per diem, but not a personal card. So that's one. One of the requirements actually for your handbook, which is attached to everything, is that you need to turn in the reimbursement forms, receipts and itemized receipts for your credit card reconciliation forms, and we try to do that as timely as possible because the accounting department, they have a huge reconciliation that they do of the credit cards or make payments, reimbursements and stuff like that, and so we need to provide them with it within a timely manner and have the auditor be able to review all the receipts and have the documentation to back it up.
Just on my timely manner and your timely manner are on the same page. What are we talking about as far as timely manner?
Well, I mean, we'd hope like within a week,
Okay.
That you're able to, after your event that you attended and stuff, yeah. It just, and then, the signature, I understand, like, we don't, not every commissioner is all together, because we need to have 2 commissioners sign the forms and stuff like that. That can wait, as long as I give like at least a receipt or something like that, I can give it to accounts payable, they can budget it, put the budget line on it and move forward with the reconciliation and stuff like that, so that's one thing. And one of the other things too is just make sure that everyone is monitoring their emails. And if you can also just, like, if you receive an email and I'm kind of requesting, sometimes I'll try to put in there, hey, I need to know this now, because I need to get something reserved, or I need to do certain things that are critical kind of right away. Just let me know too, you're like, hey, can't get to this point, or just the response back that you received the email is, and then we can follow through, because it kind of goes out there and you never know, gosh, did they ever receive this? And so I might send a reminder out, only friendly, to remind it, but yeah, so just making sure, because we do a lot of changes in our calendars or meetings, certain things that you have to be aware of. So And then the rules of procedure handbook that you have attached there. There'll be a meeting set for you to go over your budget, have a budget meeting, a special meeting likely, and then also the handbook. And go over any revisions and things that you need to make and that, so right now there's some changes that were made in there in regards to clothing. That needed to get updated, so this is a redlined version in there, I've highlighted some areas that you might wanna look at. But if you're, either you make the changes or you don't, it's up to you guys manage that, but, and. And the terminology in here of governing board is due to legal who created those, that's your term as a governing board, commissioner. We use that kind of lightly, but it's governing
Yes,
members.
this is an RFA governing board, but I mean populated by commissioners right now.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but maybe there won't always be fully just commissioners on the board at the time, so, later on.
Yeah.
Since progress, but that's it.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our standing agenda, we've got our warrants. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to accept disbursements in the amount of $636,183.39.
The motion by Commissioner Evelyn, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Sullivan. Any questions, concerns, changes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Is there any governing board reports from the members? No, none. Financial report, chief.
Yeah, I'm sorry about my throat right now. So you have in your packet the reconciliation for May. We gained a little bit back, which is as predicted, we're 1% over budget. On the fund balance sheet, I do want to bring your attention to the general expense fund at 17 million. We are still awaiting a transfer from our fire benefit charge fund. It should have been automatic, and we're looking into why it didn't occur, but there's about 5 million in the fire benefit charge fund that will get added to that likely by in the next week or two. So as far as the line items, there was a few that I wanted to bring your attention to, but if there's any questions about any of these, please let me know. On the first page under outside instructors, there's notes to most of these that are attached in your sheet. We invested in our Officer Development Academy. Thank you. In our Officer Development Academy, and that is why I think we tapped all of that budget line item. And then some a little bit. But that's a one-time expense. On page 2, down towards the bottom, you'll see clothing allowance to quartermaster. We've moved to a quartermaster system, so we're going to see higher expenditures at the beginning as we acclimate to this new program. But throughout the rest of the year, that should decrease. So there's a big spike in replacement costs there at the beginning. On page 4 at the bottom, we did overspend on our training academy for overtime. We're looking into why that happened. I will give you an update at our next meeting as to what that looked like. On page 6, we've had a lot of facilities repair work that needed to occur in the middle of the page. And we've overspent on that line item, so hopefully things don't break for the rest of the year. Would be nice. And that was it for the line items. Was there any questions or anything that I didn't touch or that we haven't discussed in previous reports?
How is the new system working out? The new quartermaster system?
Oh, the quartermasters. Well, we've moved to it and we found some ambiguous language that in our policy, so we've had to clean that up and we're kind of reconciling some of that. We believe that over time that will be a much better system for us. We have looked at other systems like Bellevue's to see, what we can do to make sure that we're have a good and appropriate policy. But it's been working out okay so far. We've had some hiccups. Like I said, most of it was kind of the interpretation on the policy because we modified our old policy and some of those modifications didn't transfer the way we thought it would. So Chief Hochstein has updated our policy again, and we're going through the process again that re-approved. On the overtime, on the second page, when it gets to the staffing only, we did have it's marginally or about the same as in April, but I'm still concerned at the elevated rate. This will be reflected in our hiring process that we're in the middle of for our firefighters, and as we look at staffing for 2027, we are looking at probably about 14 positions that we want to hire for this fall, and we are interviewing here next week. Is it next week?
For the HR charger? No, sorry.
No, for firefighter.
Oh, firefighter, yeah.
Coming up.
Executive.
And should be able to give you the final numbers here as we start going through the budget process. And that was it. Any questions on the May report?
Just 2 comments on page 1.
Yeah.
For percentage remaining, you've got 2 items. One says we have 131% remaining. The other says 101.9% remaining, which those should be zeroed out.
Yes, that is correct. Looks like a funding or a conditional formatting formula issue. I will, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. The only 2 I saw.
Anything else for finances? Let's move on then. No strategic report, correct?
No,
Okay.
everything has to do with the RFA.
Okay, we've got the activity reports. Let's start with Chief Towns.
If there's any questions, I do have one additional thing that I emailed you on today that I'd like to talk about, but is there any questions first of all?
The new truck is in for service. What was the?
The new truck. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to something that Chief Orms was going to talk about, but our new truck was up at Hughes, getting some of the final, upfitting and so forth. It came out of Pierce with a bunch of items that needed to be addressed. Not as many as the fire engine, but they were in the final processes, had just a handful of items left. But unfortunately, our current ladder truck got in an accident the other night and is out of service. Fortunately, nobody got seriously injured, but there is some significant damage to the tiller portion, the steering axle. It hit on the tiller as it was swinging around, hit another car, and pushed that car into another car. But again, there was some precautionary transports for 2 occupants in the first car and our tiller driver. But nobody was seriously injured, and we're all released. They were able to limp it back to station 63, which the plan is to have mechanics get there and get it in workable shape to tow it to either Hughes or to another facility to get the work done. But it's going to be out of service for a while. Because it was going out of service, we quickly went to Hughes and got our new ladder truck, and it's down here, and they got that into service very quickly. So within like about 6 hours.
Oh.
So you'll see the new ladder truck driving around, which we weren't expecting to have, and we were going to do a push-in ceremony for that. Hey, guess what? We just did our push-in ceremony. Okay, we'll still do one, but we quickly pivoted to make sure that we had an in-service truck. So I will be able to give you some more updated estimates on time and so forth, once we get a better look at that. The damage and so forth. And because of the damage and because of it hitting other cars and all that, we did open up an insurance claim.
Oh, I thought this was referring to the front apparatus. I didn't realize. Okay.
Okay, so I'm sorry, well, I thought you were talking about our new light truck in the front being worked on and used.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I
thought-
kind of
thought
pivoted
that-
there a little bit.
Okay.
It was up there and now it's down here.
Gotcha.
So
What else did you have to add?
I sent an email today, and it was just earlier today, about looking at redeploying Aid 157 and the staff on it to help out with our MIH program. And I'll give you the short version on this, which is we would take the 2 firefighters that are working Aid 157 and during the day redeploy them and pair them up with MIH personnel, our community services officers, on 2 different rigs to do low acuity work, MIH work, and potentially transports. And that would allow us to help with the increased MIH workload, and at the same time accomplish what the intent was with Aid 157, was to be in service and being available for transports and so forth. But they would be moving around. I wanted to bring this up, and we want to have, we can't really take action or anything because this is a special agenda, a special meeting agenda. If we want to have a more robust conversation about it at our meeting on the 23rd, then I'm happy to add that to the agenda. But I wanted to be sensitive to what we promised with the initial staffing of Aid 157 and addressing the transports and the workload potentially on Aid 151, or actually 51 in general, when they're out doing either an aid call and or transport. So I believe this is a way to get a little bit better value out of Aid 157, expand what we're doing with our MIH program, and still accomplish what we need to do with Aid 157 and being able to be available for transports or to cover when another vehicle is out or another aid car is out transporting.
So can you clarify, because so it sounds to me like what you're talking about is putting the 8157 out of service and then taking the 2 firefighters and allocating them to other duties during the day, but then you said somehow that still meets our ability to use that to transport. How's that work?
They'd be in, the idea would be to put them in vehicles that can do that low acuity work and or transports. And so they wouldn't be at station 57. Well, I mean, they could be in that area. They wouldn't be at station 57, but they would be available to do that low acuity work and or transports. That's the idea. And again, we can have a more robust conversation about this. I want to make sure that I'm being sensitive because that's what the Aid 157 staffing was part of the ILA that we formed back in 2022. And I want to make sure that we're not going away from some of the work that aid car needs to do, which is the coverage for units when they're out on a call and or doing transports. So if we can talk about this more on the 23rd if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it either this meeting or on the 23rd, because I think we just need to be transparent with Lake Forest Park, because that was part of the deal of the whole RFA coming together with North Shoreline is the additional transport capacity. And also, yeah, I just think we need to talk about the implications of it, because I think there's other solutions that we could consider in terms of staffing if we have to address a staffing issue with MIH.
Right. Well, we are in the process of trying to add more positions to the non-uniform CBA, but we are in the middle of negotiations, and I can't really comment on this, too much right now. I have also proposed, EMS only positions that could be like non-combat positions that could be assigned to the MIH to help with the staffing. You're correct in that there are other options that we can consider and all that. I'm just looking, at our different options, and right now, I need to address the workload situation in the MIH team. And this is the most immediate remedy. And there might be some other options that we look at more longer term and all that, and or when the non-uniform CBA is ratified, that will also provide some relief too.
Yeah, I just have concerns about it, making a decision to unilaterally put that, not that transport unit out of service when that was part of the.
It's not really out of service, it's just not going to be assigned to that station. But there'll still be in units that can do transports and so forth. You just won't be out of that station necessarily.
You won't have two people on an 8 car.
No, we'll have a firefighter and a CSO on 2 different units. I'm thinking at least one, or maybe both of them would even be 8 cars. Although we just did get our new vehicle that can do wheelchair transports. So maybe one of them's in that. We haven't fleshed this out entirely, but we do need to address the workload somehow with the MIH.
Steve, can I ask a question real quick?
Sure, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I'm just curious. In general, I'm in favor of staffing up, 2 teams of 2, firefighter and a social worker or community safety officer. But where are the 2 firefighters already assigned to the MIH team?
Those are the CSOs.
Okay, so you'd have
we take the 2 CSOs that are assigned there and split them and pair them up with the 2 firefighters that are currently on aid 157 during the day, and they would both deploy in 2 different units.
So there would be a team of 3 then? You'd have a social worker, a CSO, and a firefighter?
No, the CSO is the firefighter. It's the CSO is the community services officer. It's what you're thinking of as the firefighters. There are uniformed personnel, and they currently operate together on a unit doing low acuity, or with our other 2 our social services coordinator and our clinical coordinator. And they kind of mix it up and try to deploy wherever they need to, and sometimes as single resources and sometimes as a pair. And this would be a way of populating more units and being able to spread some of the workload out and not be in an overload situation. I can.
Okay.
I'm
I'm still kind of confused on what that staffing model looks like. So you've got a social worker, a community safety officer who's a uniformed firefighter, and 2 personnel off of aid 157.
We have 4 people in the MIH right now.
Yep.
2 of them being the community social or community services officers. And those 2 would split and pair up with the firefighters from aid 157. The other 2, Annie and Bethel, would still be oversight and managing and doing the work that they do. But instead of only having 1 or 2 units out there doing this work, we'd have the 2 CSO and firefighter units, plus Annie and Bethel and they go around and do their work too. So this is it's a force multiplier with being able to address the low acuity work.
Okay.
So how about I add it to the 23rd, and I can give you some more information, and instead of this all kind of popped up today, which is why this isn't fleshed out as much as it should be. And I just wanted to make sure that I was putting it on your radar so that we could have some more conversation about it and for you guys to think about it a little bit.
I think with that information, it'd be nice to know just kind of what the numbers are, how often they're running into different places and that units can use as. If it's not being used for anything, it seems like an easy decision. They're being used and accomplishing, maybe we need to add way. But I don't know what those numbers are, so it'd be good to see what that is.
The numbers of 857 utilization.
Yeah, what's aid 157 doing? What's aid 1 doing? How often are they out? How often is 157 backing up? How often do we not have to do it to out? Which part area?
Yeah.
Those kind of things would be good to make a informed decision on.
Sure, I can get you. We can get that.
Yeah, because I do have concerns just also about big transparent with Lake Forest Park that we should somehow, you know, since they were involved in endorsing this.
Yeah.
Model that we should not reduce the level of service during the day there without somehow informing or getting some feedback.
Well, the primary use of 8157 is to provide backup to other units as they are out of service for longer, because there is not a lot of call volume out of 8150 out of the 57 area. But it is strategic geographically as to being able to float to wherever the gaps are. So I don't envision that is going to change necessarily. The unit that we have, we could split the units, one working up this direction, one working up in Lake Forest Park, Kenmore area. And in that area, they could move to those gaps and or do the low acuity, work and transports in a manner that is still very similar to what 8157 is doing now. It's just not operating out of that fire station. Exactly. It would be moving around to do the work, and then when the call came in, they could either, if they were available, they could add themselves to that incident.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to have you bring it back and maybe we have a better understanding of the, the current model and what the proposed model would be.
Yeah,
and maybe some alternatives for resolving that.
Sure.
I mean, if it's a staffing shortage issue, I guess there's different ways to address it.
I can certainly bring back more numbers. I can tell you that 8157 is not being utilized all that much right now. I think the latest numbers that I remember looking at was like less than twice a day. But I will get you a better numbers and all that. It just popped up today, and I wanted to add this. We can't take action on it today because it's not part of our special meeting agenda. But I wanted to introduce it as a thought.
MIH personnel would have to become EMTs to do that, wouldn't they?
The MIH, do they have to be EMTs? Or this EMT only concept, or?
Well, if they're going to be on a responding aid unit, I would think they'd have to be EMT.
Yeah, and they are.
They aren't now, are they?
Yeah.
Oh, are they?
But no, I think there's some confusion amongst all of us. It sounds like about like the roles of the different members of the MIH team. I think because I think I was under the impression that the way that it worked was that either the social worker or the clinical coordinator kind of went out and a firefighter, and they were kind of a 2-person team that way. I had a couple of those teams, but it sounds like what you're saying is they're not doing that, and the firefighters are going out together in some kind of low acuity response role. So I guess in general, it sounds like we need a better understanding of the model.
Right. And again, I was just introducing this as a thought, and more, more information to come. It is everything you just said. Sometimes they're pairing up, with each other. Sometimes they're out on single, going out on their own. A lot of the work that they've been doing is referral work, but we are also gearing up and expanding what the MIH program is doing, including additional responses on 911 calls, low acuity 911 calls. So that's one of the expansions that we've discussed in the past as well. So we need to be branching out to make all that work. I'll come back on the 23rd.
Now let's move on to Chief Hookstein's report. Divisions have been busy. 57's lighting project has been complete, Eric. Same. Okay, if there's nothing for Chief Hookstein, let's move on to Chief Arms. Who is in attendance?
What's the discussion on mobile home fires?
It's interesting. So, I want to say 4 or 5 months ago, maybe longer, like
I'm sorry, my temper may not be right here, but we had a double fatality at a mobile home in Bothell. And that got me thinking a little bit about some of the hazards there. I had fire prevention over there helping with doing an analysis over the last 5 years of the number of structure fires and our fatality and injury rate. We learned that our manufactured homes represent a small portion of our structure fires, but a very high proportion of our fatalities. So we have been looking for ways to get into those communities to help them be a bit safer. Those fires grow. You know, we don't have a lot of mobile home parks here, right? If any anymore. And so one of the things I've learned being off was those fires grow fast, and by the time we're there ready to intervene, it's much too late. So helping them with early notification and skill planning has been kind of our goal, and we're just kind of organizing ourselves to see how that's going to. So this summer we plan to get out into the community, get the smoke detectors installed, help with fire safety, help with skill planning, get our crews into those mobile home parks to kind of make sure we're very familiar with them. So that's kind of been that.
Okay. Fire prevention,
It's a fire prevention.
yeah. They burn fast,
They do. And they burn hot and fast, and it's
small roads too.
blocked. We do not have any mobile home parks or trailer parks in shoreline. But this is an issue in our region.
Yeah, I get it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Chief Holmes, I have a question. Could you elaborate on how the meeting with city emergency managers was about, how that went?
Yeah, so that's it's our second meeting with the emergency managers from Bothell, Nemco and Shoreline. I took this project from Chief Oakstein about a month and a half, 2 months now. And I'm just trying to get my feet underneath me to understand all the different preferences from all the different emergency managers. So as you can imagine, the city of Bothell, Nemco, and the city of Shoreline all have pretty starkly different expectations of what they want fire department. And so just kind of getting a handle on that and making sure we need kind of the project, making sure we have communications, radio templating, starting at the very basic level.
Is there anything else for Chief Arts? Moving on to old business then. Chief,
I get to talk more?
yes, we're doing this on purpose.
Okay, so obviously one of the bigger topics that we've been working on and projects has been the efforts regarding the potential of Bothell and Snow 10 and joining the RFA. We've got, as I briefed at the last meeting, both Snow 10 and Bothell have passed resolutions with the interest in joining and annexing into our RFA. So our next step was to define what this looks like and amending our governing documents. And so we've had multiple meetings to discuss the different positions. I've provided some updates throughout this process to you all. I'd like to go through it's about 10 or 12 items that we identified early on. You might recall I called it like the 14 questions. And go through those and give you a quick updates on those things. And then if you have any questions about any of those and or the document, the governing document that I emailed you. We just last night and even this morning we're finalizing some of the governing document language and so forth. And so if there's what I'm asking for tonight is to adopt and approve this governing document. And then the next steps would be to kick this back to Snow 10 and Bothell to consider, and then pass by resolution to put it onto the ballot in November. Okay, so I'll go through and again, I'll go through these fairly quickly, but if you have any questions about any of them, I'm happy to address them. As far as the City of Bothell's public safety levy, The city would continue to collect the full amount of the levy and transfer the funds to the RFA commensurate with to cover 10 5-year firefighter with benefits. When the current levy sunsets, there would be no longer any more commitment from the city. On the public safety capital bond, which is what's funded the 2 stations that they recently constructed, stations 42 and 45. The taxpayers would continue to pay off that bond, which sunsets in 2040. The collection of the EMS levy funds in Snohomish County, the Snohomish County portion of Bothell and Snohomish County District 10. That's a little bit of an interesting one. The Bothell, the Snohomish County portion in Bothell is covered by the Bothell Urban EMS District. And in both cases, both Snow 10 and the Bothell Urban EMS District, they mimic the rates in King County. And that is important because you have to have a uniformity of taxation. And the plan for 2027 would be for both entities to continue collecting that EMS levy funds and transfer it to the RFA. Part of these governing documents is for Snow 10 to dissolve at the end of next year. When the district dissolves, there would no longer be any authority to collect the EMS levy, which goes out through 2029. So the plan at this point, and I would say it's very likely that we will need to run our own EMS levy in 2027 to address the Snow 10 portion of the EMS levy collection. And since we are doing, if that is the case and we need to do that, we might as well do both that and the Snohomish County portion of Bothell and replace the Bothell Urban EMS District levy at the same time. The plan originally was that both of these levies, they sunset in 2029, and we would at that point do that EMS, run the EMS levy again. But if we need to do it for Snow 10, we might as well do both of them at the same time. This can ensure that there's a consistency in the continued delivery of EMS services in Snohomish County. That one's a little bit different. Any questions on that? City service contracts and agreements for tax exempt properties and the governing documents that those would transfer over to the RFA. Operational reserves transfer. This was a big deal. Let me preface this, but there's a couple of things that we were originally talking about as far as transfers of funds. Bothell is working very hard to try and increase their reserves. They're currently sitting at about 7%. Their goal is to get it up to 10%. So they're not in a position to transfer funds at this time. And so we got creative with how we could address some of our needs and being able to mitigate some of these impacts over the longer term. I am focusing on the benefits that this RFA will provide our taxpayers, specifically in 2028 and beyond. And that's going to require us to help and collaborate with and be a partner with Bothell to make this work. And so for the operational reserves, we would not require any operational reserve transfers, and we would use the savings capacity that we would have in 2028 to address any shortfalls at that time. I believe that we do have some funds that we can move around to address our 15% goal, and that what we've attained. We can move funds from different funds, such as the benefits fund, to be able to bridge the gap that we would need to maintain 15%. If we don't do anything, just to put in context of what the impacts are, it's a little over 3% that we would take a hit on. I believe that we would drop to about 11.5% in our operational reserve, but we did nothing. But I believe that we have the funds that we can bridge the gap. I'll just use the benefits fund as an example. The benefits fund is there, primarily to address our left one liabilities. And so if we took some money from that fund and put it into our operational reserve to maintain our 15%. We could float for the next year or two with less in that benefits fund. And if for some reason we all of a sudden had those left one liabilities become a larger problem for us, that is, we could pull back from our reserve fund to populate, that coverage. But it's a low risk, but it is a risk. So that's, again, I'm trying to be short, and then if you have any questions on any of this, please let me know. But that's our plan for operational reserves. On asset replacement, the capital fund, similar situation in that there's limited funds for capital replacement that Bothell can provide to us. However, they have gotten creative, and over the next 2 years would transfer about 610,000 to the RFA, 105 within 30 days of the effective date next year, which is March 1st. And then the other 505,000 by April 1st of 2028. This will help us bridge the gap, the immediate impacts at least, in our capital fund. And then the follow-up plan to that is to use our increased AV to commensurate with what our rates are now to increase the annual contribution, which was the plan all along anyway, to maintain a rolling 20-year fund in that asset replacement strategy that we have adopted to make sure that we're budgeting for those bigger expenses down the road. On the left one liabilities, the retiree liabilities, the city will maintain that liability. On vacation hours and sick leave liabilities, the city will cover any cash outs through the end of 2028. This will address our more immediate needs if there is a retirement in the immediate future. On capital assets, all assets would transfer to the RFA, similar to what we've done in the past with the Legacy North Shore Fire District. With the exception of the fire stations would remain a city asset through the end of the payments of the bonds, which is 2040. However, we would have full authority to do whatever, we would take on the liability of maintaining, operating, repairing, construction, anything that has to do with those stations, and would have full authority to do so. We would lease the fire stations from the city for $1 a year, and then transfer at the end for $1 once the bonds are sunsetted, once they're paid off in 2040 for $1 to transfer them into the RFA. This addresses my concern, which is to make sure that we have authority to do the things that we need to do in the fire stations. The governing board governance, as you have, we've had special meetings to discuss this, the 333 concept with advisory board members. I've also discussed this with the SNO 10 board, and they would have a special advisory board to make sure that their concerns regarding a couple of capital projects, a fire engine purchase and a major remodel of Station 44, that they would have involvement in that through 2027 until those projects were complete. One of the things that we are still working on is what are the impacts to specifically the Bothell taxpayers. There will be costs, taxpayer savings for SNO 10 and for the current RFA, but depending on what the city lowers their property tax rate to, will have a direct impact on what the overall with the RFA, what the impacts are to the Bothell taxpayers. That hasn't been defined as yet. It's tentatively been agreed to lower the tax rate, but that is a city decision, and what that rate is, that's for the city to define. There's still ongoing conversations about what that is. I do want to bring to your attention, though, that just like in the current RFA, that single family residences are impacted far less with the fire benefit charge portion of our revenue stream. And that would be it's the same model that would occur in Bothell. So single family residences will have less of an impact than, say, multifamily and commercial, similar to what you're familiar with the rest of the RFA. This will be a change for the taxpayers in Bothell. It could result in, again, depending on where the tax rate lands, It could result in no increase or moderate increase, for single family residences, but the multifamily and the commercial would be higher. Again, I don't want to speculate on what those numbers are going to be at this time because that's something that the city will have to decide on where they land. And then the final point was how will service levels be affected? There will be some moderate improvements in operational service levels throughout the Snow 10 and Bothell service area. Most of the improvements in the short term will be more administrative than there will be operational, but there will be some operational improvements. I've identified those in some of those documents that I've shared with you. And those will improve as we upstaff in preparation for the 2 fire stations that we are, forecasting that we're going to construct. And in 2030 or 2031, when those stations are constructed and staffed, there'd be a very significant improvement in the level of service in Bothell, Kenmore, and in Shoreline as we build the Station 62 and the Station 41 or 43, depending on what number we use in South Bothell. That South Bothell station will also be able to address our South Kenmore gaps that we have. It's not at the same level as what we are impacted by in South Bothell, but together there's nearly 2,000 calls that are south of the slough in South Kenmore and South Bothell. So this would be a dramatic increase there. It would also provide relief for Station 42, which is in downtown Bothell, similar to what our situation is with Station 64 and what the relief that we will get provided when Station 62 is built. That was about as quick as I could go through that and not talk too much. So any questions on any of that?
Would you, the 15% that we have in operational reserves, that's a fairly conservative number, right? I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, how concerned are we with, lowering that reserve number?
We've worked very hard to get to that place. I mean, I've been here for 13 years, and there's a couple of you that were here when I got here, and we had very little in reserves. We had $250,000 in reserves, and really, we're not very good financial, position. We worked very hard over that time to get to not only improving levels of service and our staffing levels, because at that time we only had 3 fire engines and part-time aid car. I'm very proud of what we've done. It's taken a lot of work. Typically, and I remember when we went through our UTGO rating in 2015, that they were concerned about those reserve levels. And that's one reason why we didn't get like a AAA rating at that time. And again, we've worked very hard to improve those. And at that time, I think we were around 5%. We have done some work in researching, because this question has come up before about what should be a percent, what is an industry standard. A lot of times that 7% number is thrown out there as like a kind of a minimum, level. 10% is good, 12% is really good, 15% is excellent. There's, some departments will run above 15%, but that seems to be a pretty high mark as far as, in fire department reserves, at least. When I've talked to bond counsel on this, 15% should set us up in a very good position. Anything over 10% will set us up in a pretty good position for rating. But I really want to get a AAA rating if we can, because that will give us a lower interest rate and provide better efficiencies in how we use that bond, and and what that rating looks like, the interest rate that we are going to have to pay, and for our taxpayers to pay. So it's something that I'm excited about. I believe that we can, with moving money around, that we can maintain our 15%, but it'll come with moving money around and potential, like I mentioned earlier, the benefits fund. If we were to, lower that amount, then that puts us at a little bit more risk, for if for some reason our left one liabilities, all came to a head, in a short time frame. But that is also, in my opinion, why we could potentially tap back into that reserve fund if that occurs. I think it's a low risk, but it is a risk.
So, I mean, essentially my impression is that we're in an outstanding position with regard to reserves right now. And if we momentarily have to take a blip in that number, that we'll still be in very good position regardless, and much better position than we've been historically in the past.
Agreed. And I should have prefaced this too, but I support all those positions. I appreciate Kyle Stannard is, we didn't introduce a city manager for Bothell. He's worked very collaboratively with us and worked hard to try and get creative. I believe that we've approached this as true partners. And so some of the short-term, pain is to, pain, maybe that's a too negative of a word. It's this blip, if you will, I think is worth it because the benefits for all of our communities as part of the larger RFA outweighs some of the impacts that we have to deal with over the next 2-3 years.
Anybody else
I'm sorry, I should have introduced him.
Anybody else have thoughts on I don't feel that we should be shuffling our funds around to accommodate. I don't think that's right for our citizens. Maybe we should postpone this for another year and maybe Bob can come up with something else.
Being the fire chief over in Bothell, I am aware of the situation in Bothell and their reserve funds and so forth. I don't know if their situation will improve. It could improve, but I don't know if it will, and that we would be in that they would be in a better situation to contribute. There is a difference in perspective as to the approach of joining the RFA from the city's perspective and from what I believe our RFA perspective is. I'm not saying that either is right or wrong. It's just a difference in perspective and what is palatable, comfortable in contributing.
I've heard rumors.
So
unfortunate. I know that there are several of us that have said this is moving too fast. It's moving way too fast. I don't know if anybody else is going to speak up and share their opinions, but that's mine.
In my opinion, I think these type of opportunities are extremely difficult to arrive at. And if you don't, once all the parts are together, ready to go, if you don't take action, you may lose that opportunity. And I feel like this is a valuable opportunity that's going to benefit everybody in the whole district. I think that we have much better capacity to collect the revenue that we need to collect. I don't think that endorsing this is going to put us at risk in any way, shape, or form. I understand the principle that we want everybody to pay their fair share, but I think we have the ability in the long term to collect what we need to collect to remedy any short-term reductions in reserves or capital reserves that we might have. So I really think that we need to take action on this, and so I'm going to make a motion.
Eric, can we let everybody else talk before
Sure.
we make motions?
Okay.
Thank you.
one thing I would like to add, because I started to talk about the perspectives. One of the things that, as you might recall, I think it was in 2015 when there was a lot of work being done on a 4-way RFA between the North Shore Fire Department, Bothell, Snow 10, and Woodinville. Thank you. Was at that time there was some significant gaps in the especially in the stations in Bothell. I think their apparatus was in decent shape at that time, and maybe their equipment too. But what was very visible was the investment that needed to occur in the fire stations, especially, and that ended up being. I was watching from the outside. I wasn't intimately involved or anything, but it felt like that was a big hurdle, and a big challenge to overcome, and ultimately was at least a factor in the reason why that RFA did not occur at that time. The city has invested heavily in addressing that, at least in the fire stations, with their capital bond, which they're going to be paying off through 2040. And so there's the two stations that they have are both about 3 years old now. And so they have tried to bridge some of that gap with some investments. And I think that should be, recognized as well.
How come them maintaining the fire prevention office? The fire marshal's office.
Right. So sorry, I didn't mention that. Thank you. So the city would like to integrate, I think, the fire marshal's office into the community development division in a more relationship way, and to maintain that within the city is important to them to be able to do that. I don't have a lot of knowledge as to what that, the reasoning and so forth, except that there's a desire to integrate them, quite a bit more into the community development division. So and this is not, there are cities out there that have a non-firefighter, non-IAFF represented fire marshal's office. This isn't, it's probably 50-50 out there as to how they're staffing the fire marshal's offices.
So their inspectors and investigators would not be part of the local.
Correct. Currently, there is an interim fire marshal and an interim assistant fire marshal in Bothell. We have a light duty firefighter acting as a deputy fire marshal, but it's a little lean right now. The plan would be to offer positions to the acting fire marshal and acting assistant fire marshal. We have gaps in our fire marshal's office, not only currently, but in next year, we will be losing our assistant fire marshal and a deputy fire marshal. So this would be a fairly easy way to integrate, those positions. So there would be no loss of those positions. The work, and it would fill our gaps. It actually would help us with filling our gaps. But of course, the city will need to figure out how they're going to populate that fire marshal's office with their staff moving forward in 2027.
Would their fire marshal's office regulate safety standards to the same levels that we do? Are they required to, or could
yes
they
and no
encourage development by backing off on them and, and then our guys are walking into potentially lesser safe situations?
I don't think that that's really a risk, but I'm going to say yes and no, because each of the cities have a responsibility and the authority to adopt codes the way that they see fit. There are certain codes that are boilerplate, that are standard, but then there's addendums and different options within the codes that they can adopt or not. An example is one that we addressed with Shoreline quite a while back, and you were around for that, was with the sprinkler requirements and things. So each of the cities currently even may have differences in what parts of the code that they adopt or
I'm very aware of that.
Yeah. And so we've worked hard in Shoreline, Lake Forest Park, and Kenmore to try and get consistency. We're not quite there yet, but Ryan, our fire marshal, is working hard to try and make that work. But I would think that there will still be inconsistencies through the cities. But I don't see this as a risk that all of a sudden because everybody's interested in having safe buildings and
well, you could get a city council that was pro-development and decide to roll out, back off on some of those safety codes, because there's a lot of money in safety. And it's
but they have that authority now. Whether the fire marshal's office is within the city or within the RFA, they have that authority now to adopt whatever codes that they have. I guess we could argue that we would have a little more influence as a.
If we're enforcing their codes, that's kind of like almost a conflict for us.
Well, we won't be enforcing their codes. But
if they had their own codes and our guys were. If they adopted less codes and we had kept the fire marshal's office, that wouldn't work either, because it'd be
correct.
So
ultimately the city has the authority. But if it was within the RFA, there potentially could be more influence there. But at the end of the day, the city has the authority to adopt the codes that they want. I don't see this as all of a sudden that there's going to be a higher risk to our firefighters. I don't see that as that they would change things. I mean, okay. It's an interesting question. I had not thought about though. So
I have a question about the asset replacement. On the copy of this we got yesterday, the figure was $950,000 shall be transferred within 30 days of the effective date. What we've got tonight says 105,000. And then 505,000 possibly in 2028. There's a huge difference in those two figures.
correct. And that's what I was talking about where we were last night and even this morning, we were still modifying these governing documents. The 950,000 also includes the transfer that I was looking at with the 950,000 included costs that were going to be in 2026. We're still working on trying to address some of those costs in 2026 so if you look at it from overall investment, that 610,000, there's more expenses that would be added onto that. That'll be within the 2026 Bothell budget that had been included in my $950,000 estimate. It's kind of, I didn't say that very well. I can get into details if you like, but I mean, we have expenses that we're working on right now in the Bothell 2026 budget that I was including in that $950,000 amount.
Okay.
But the 610,000 that we're talking about is in 27 and 28, not including the efforts that we're working on right now in 2026. So the value of that 610,000 is increased. It's not the same as 950,000, but it's close, with the projects that we're still trying to get through in 2026 before the RFA occurs.
Tyler, do you have any comments?
I agree with Commissioner Admin. I've seen a few of these things come to, ahead with different murders and consolidations of fire districts, and then just kind of fall apart at the last second because there's some reason that happens. I think these opportunities don't happen that often, and if we pass on the opportunity now, potentially it may never happen. I think it'd be good for all of our citizens, including citizens of Bothell, to move forward with it. I don't love not being able to get, everything moved over at the same time. But it's also not a deal breaker for me. I feel like we're in a good spot. I have full faith in the chief and what he's doing and the work he's doing. So I support it.
David, do you have any further comments?
No.
Rod? Any further comments?
Oh.
Bart?
I'm concerned about the lack of finances, I guess. So Bothell wouldn't make the transfer until it's built its own reserves up to 10%. Are those guaranteed reserves?
So there's no under the current plan, there's no transfer of operational reserves. We would address that gap with the savings that we will get in 2028. In 2028, our taxpayers will see in today's dollars, in 2026 dollars, a roughly 37 cents per thousand decrease in their rate, and we would just not decrease it by that much. I estimate we would it's about a 3 to 3.5 cent impact to address the gap in that transfer. So in rough numbers, the 37 cent decrease would be a 34 cent decrease. It'd still be a very significant decrease, but it wouldn't be as much as it would have been. And this is what I was talking about with being creative and collaborative and trying to make this work and looking at 2028 and beyond, and not what's going to happen in between now and 2028. I'm I would not support this if I wasn't confident that we could, bridge the gaps that we're talking about. And I do support this.
Rick, do you have any further comments?
Well, you've been addressed that I was curious about.
Okay.
I do think to try to get this to pass the citizens of Bothell will be to know if their taxes are actually gonna increase. And
Yes.
for our folks that are gonna be waving signs and answering questions, by the taxpayers, it's a pretty vital
Agreed.
key to this puzzle.
And
Piece of this.
you do bring up a good point of like, whatever we do here is really to kick it back to the ultimate, yay or naysayers, which is the voters. And the community outreach and messaging will be absolutely critical to whether or not there's support out there or not, because we can talk about levels of service, and I think we can easily talk about the improvements that we're going to see in doing this, but everybody, especially nowadays, is very concerned about what does this mean to me? What does it mean to my overall, financial situation? And we won't be able to answer that question until we land on what that property tax rate looks like, and the city's considering that, and they're going through their 27-28 biennial budget process right now. So I think that we'll get those answers here, in coming weeks, months, in time to be able to give that outreach that we need.
It's kind of seems like Bossel's been kind of their philosophies low cost, and it could be kind of shocking to this taxpayers out there.
I think a lot of cities, try to stay as lean as possible, in recognition of the taxpayers and all that. I think that my personal opinion, not professional, is that Bothell is pretty low on their overall taxation, but I think that that's in recognition of the impacts that a lot of our residents and taxpayers are feeling with our overall tax structure and the situation in the state or the county. So I think that they are being very cognizant of where those impacts are. We've had this conversation as a fire department, as a fire district, and now as an RFA. What is our comfortability, and at what level do we tax our citizens, our taxpayers? And I'm very proud of the fact that we've been able to lower our rate from, well, when I got here at $1.50 to where we sit now at $1.05. And improving our funds levels, our reserves, our levels of service, and all that. But there's a balance there. We can either invest in those levels of service, or we can or be leaner. And
We've had a raising AV though that kind of helped.
That absolutely has helped. Without raising AV, that we wouldn't be able to be at $1.05. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that's the balance, and that's what Bothell is battling with right now, is trying to figure out what that balance looks like. They are, significantly impacted, along with, I don't know of a city that out there that isn't impacted significantly with decreased sales tax revenues from what the forecasted estimate has been. And there's probably a lot of reasons that are outside of our discussion tonight as to why that is. But that is a factor in their financial situation, which impacts, what their comfortability is with transferring money and so forth too. And where that property tax rate will end up.
Lisa, do you have anything to add?
I'm not super opposed to moving the money around. I don't love it, but I think trying to work collaboratively and remembering where we were at North Shore and our push for previously, like, low everything. I still think this is very workable, and I personally don't see a need to hold off on voting.
Josh, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I'd like to speak in favor of moving forward. I think that a motion is appropriate at this point. And I think that, like Commissioner Byers and Commissioner Admin have pointed out, this isn't ideal. It's not what we had kind of dreamed of, but it's still going to be really good for the citizens, both of Shoreline, Kenmore, Lake Forest Park, and Bothell. It's great for the firefighters. It's the right thing to do, and it's a workable plan, and we should move forward.
Again, I'll state my opinion quickly and we can go ahead and figure out what we're gonna do from there. I think we have a financial responsibility to our citizens. And I don't think moving money around to subsidize Bothell, I can't justify it. So with that said, do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the RFA Governing Board of Commissioners to approve and sign the amended Regional Fire Authority Plan and governing documents to include the city of Bothell and Snohomish County Fire District number 10.
Could you add, I'm sorry, the resolution number, because I did not have that.
This is resolution 26-05.
I'll second.
It's been motioned by Commissioner Admin and seconded by Commissioner Pratt. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
No,
Nay. Ron? Opposed or for it?
Oh, I said yay.
Nay. Okay,
Nay or yay?
Yay.
yay, thank you, thank
They
you.
sound the same under one.
Okay,
I believe it's an 8-2.
2 nays, the rest, it passes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I know this is a big decision. Appreciate it. And the support and the confidence.
Okay, moving on to projected agendas. If I can find it. Maybe. We've got July 23rd coming up. Commissioner Nye's got an excused absence. Anybody else for the 23rd? Tyler's checking. Oh, yes, and Byers, and Commissioner Byers.
I'll be via Zoom.
Okay. Anything else?
I'm sorry, I'm the 23rd.
23rd, Commissioner Byers, Commissioner Nye.
You will Zoom.
Okay. Anything else from anybody? It is 6:43. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.